All right, welcome to our Week 9 KK Collision football show as we revisit the 2005 Patrick Henry State Championship team, joined by head coach Bill Inselmann and defensive coordinator Scott Leonard. First of all, we're going to do this in three different segments tonight, along with Tory, Strock. I am Lynn, Groll, and Bill Inselmann is here with us, and we have Scott Leonard remotely on video. Thank you guys so much for joining us. First of all, looking forward to talking about this season 20 years later.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lynn. I had a lot more hair back then.
Coach Leonard, good to see you.
Good to see you guys too.
Coach Leonard, where are you now? What are you doing to stay busy?
I'm sitting on my lanai in Florida.
And what are you doing to stay busy besides golfing?
It's been a rough day. It's been a rough day. I got up and worked out at Planet Fitness, came back and golfed. And I think I was a little nervous about this meeting. I didn't sleep well last night, so I had to take a little nap in the afternoon.
Well, you guys got this started together, right? Back in 91 was your first season?
Yep.
Okay.
You better believe it.
Okay.
Yep.
How did you two meet, or how did you know each other? How did this all get started, having him part of your staff and wanting him to be your defensive coordinator?
Well, that actually starts before we were even job-wise. Scott and I are brother-in-laws.
Yep.
So a lot of people don't know Scott married my sister, Jolene. So obviously knew each other very well. And Scott played at Patrick Henry 2 years ahead of me. So I knew him growing up through high school and all that. And then eventually when I got the head coaching job at Patrick Henry, Scott was already there. And he was director of transportation and supervision. And it was neat having somebody there in the school because if you remember, I taught at Napoleon that whole time. So Scott was kind of my liaison with the kids and get everything set up. So a little bit of him being at the workplace before I got there, and then obviously being brother-in-laws, we know each other very well.
Scott, what was it like working with your brother-in-law? Did you guys ever butt heads, or was it a pretty amicable relationship?
Well, on Friday nights, it can get pretty fiery on the sideline. So we butt heads some, but it was always just, no big deal.
Scott, one of the things I remember most about you remember this, Coach Inselmann? Coach Scott Leonard's famous line was, "Don't give up on him."
That's
you
true.
Would never give up on a kid,
true.
Would you, Scotty?
That's true. I was called the eternal optimist.
What did you guys want maybe the staples of the program to be when you first started as a coaching staff at Patrick Henry when you took over in 91?
I know this is going to sound kind of maybe not what it should have been in the beginning, but I think, Scott, we just wanted to be competitive, didn't we?
Yes.
You got to remember, before Scotty and I came there, they were 0-10 the year before. Hadn't won the league championship since my junior year in 1977. So, be honest with you, PH hadn't been competitive at all in the league from 77 through 91, except maybe a season or two, somewhat competitive. So, we wanted to be competitive. And I'll tell you, Scott and I talk about this, reminisce all the time. One of my favorite stories is our third year coaching. We had gone 3-7 our first year. Mind you, we started out 0-7. So, the losing streak was actually 17 games in a row for PH. Then the next year we went 5-5, and Scott and I thought, at the start of our third year, we thought, man, we're going to compete for the league this year in the NWAL. We've got the type of team that can compete. Started out 2-0. 3 weeks later, we were promptly 2-3. We were 0-3 in the league. But little did you know who we had lost to. State champion Wasion that year, Corey Griggs and company. State runner-up lost in overtime, Liberty Center. And the Rose Boys in Montpelier. We then rattled off 5 straight wins. We went 7-3 and lost to those 3 teams. So I think Scott would agree that year we were frustrated. Will we ever compete and be able to win a league championship in this league? But at the same time, we had played with the big boys pretty good that year. I think that was a pivotal year, knowing that, maybe we can compete. And that was just a interesting and a big year for us that third year at 7-3. Wanted to be competitive.
What held you back, the offense or the defense? Not to start an argument between you two.
What's that?
What held you guys back in 93, the offense or the defense in those 3 games?
I'll let Scott answer that first.
I would say those teams were very, very good that we lost to. And I think Bill did a great job of keeping the kids together because we could have fallen apart there and we didn't. So ended up being pretty good, and that got turned the corner really in the whole program.
Scott, what do you remember about the early years, 91, 92, 93, as you guys are trying to formulate a plan to become a contender in the league? What do you remember about the early years with Coach I?
Well, I remember his first meeting that he had with the parents there, and he laid the groundwork, like, we're going to lift, and he told them what days they're going to lift, what they're going to do. And one of the parents raised their hand and said, I just did the math. You're telling me I got to have my kid here this many times? And Bill said, well, I didn't do the math, but yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, that's what I expect. And it was hard to turn the corner because they were, losing's a habit, just like winning is. And I don't know. After, like Bill said, after that third year, we were kind of down because after 7-3, you're thinking we're never going to compete. We were the small school in the league. He said, I don't care how good we're going to be, how good we're going to be. We're probably never going to win this league. Well, then we rattled off 8 in a row a little later, but
Coach Leonard, did you always want to be a coach, or what got you into coaching?
well, yeah, I went to Otsego first. I was lucky. My first teaching job was at Otsego, and I coached with Dan Koke and Randy Donald and Ed Keating. And I was having a great time there. And Bill was actually at Evergreen then. And we actually played them the first game most of the time, I think. But yeah, then I was really enjoying that. And then this administration job at Patrick Henry came up, and I put in for it. And I thought I was probably done coaching. And then Bill called me when he was going to interview, and he asked me if he got the job, if I would be his D coordinator. And I said, well, if they'll let me, I will. And John Wilhelm was the superintendent at that time, and John said, well, you can just try it 1 year. You'll know whether you can handle it or not. Well, then I ended up doing it for 18 with Bill, so it worked out pretty well.
Scott, some of your best memories of coaching at Patrick Henry?
Well, Tory, some of them involved you. I think we'll just leave it at that. But,
Scott, we talk all the time about some of the top teams in the league. You look at their coaching staffs and they have continuity, whether it be Liberty Center,
yeah.
Archbold always seems to have continuity. Patrick Henry is known for having continuity on their staff. So talk about that a little bit, and how important was it that so many of you guys stuck together for so long?
Well, I think it was very important, and that didn't start until Bill got on board there too. And then it ended up being most of us were graduates of Patrick Henry. So, we weren't going anywhere. And that just, I think it's, obviously it works in every program. You got to have the continuity with the coaches. If you have turnover every year, you know what happens then. So I think it's very important.
Scott, did you find it difficult at first balancing your administrative role and coaching, and then you finally figured it out, or was it pretty seamless for you?
It really wasn't all that bad. I always had a radio on my belt, and I could communicate with the bus drivers, and I had to leave practice occasionally for something that would come up, but I thought it went pretty well the whole time.
Who else was on your coaching staff in the very beginning, Coach?
Well, we had Steve Gibson, right, Scotty?
Yeah, he was one of our coaches in high school.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to keep him from the Bob Bowerly era. And
was Dave Follett in those early years?
Dave Follett was there in the early years, and Dave also a PH alum. Mm-hmm. So if you go back and those guys, and that was neat having them on that high school staff.
Yeah, outstanding.
Brilliant.
96, you get to the playoffs. You play that great Woodmore team, and then you're running into those great Liberty Center teams, and the Rex had it really going there in the 90s. Yeah. Get back in 97, you kind of build. Was there a point, and you, Coach Leonard, you can jump in here too. Was there a point where you felt like the program really turned that corner and you were kind of on the upswing with where the football program was headed in your mind?
Well, I'm going to say 96 and 97 for me was, Scott, I think also a turning point. But to go back to that, I'll never forget this story. In 1995, went down to the state championships and watched Bel Air play.
Yeah.
right? Probably
Yep.
I've told you the story
You have.
before.
Yep, I have heard this.
And we watched them, and they had a stand-up tight end like Iowa and
Yeah.
Hayden Fry, wide receivers, threw to both their backs, looping them out of the backfield. And we said, that's what you see on Saturdays in college. So that winter, then I went and met a whole weekend with John Magestro at Bel Air, tried to change and put all that, what would fit in our scheme, and came back. And it sure helps when you have Brian Heber, Chris Gherkin, Tony Heiser, athletes like that. And then we installed that offense. But to me, the 96, 97 years gave me confidence, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I want to credit the players we had at that time. And we won the league in 96, 97, back-to-back undefeated. And then we knew that we belonged and we could do it. But I think those teams are really what turned it around for my career and gave me that confidence.
That's interesting that you mentioned Bel Air, because I was on YouTube about a month ago, and a Bel Air game popped on there from like 1995 or 96, and I started watching it. I'm like, Coach Inselmann has told me he went down there and met with Coach Magestro, and it was cool seeing him. They had a quarterback a lot like Brian Heber, if I remember correctly, watching that video. Boy, could he throw it.
Yeah, and then Joey Galloway, that he was a pretty good athlete too for him.
Yes. Coach Leonard, when did you feel like? Do you agree with Coach
I
kind
agree
of
with
when the
Bill.
program got rolling?
Yep, I think those years were really big because we hadn't made the playoffs for forever, and then getting the playoffs, and then actually winning in '97, that kind of propelled us, I think.
So this question goes for both of you guys. Once you kind of climbed the mountain and got to the top there, did you feel like you had it figured out? Did you feel like, I know talent's always a factor, right? But did you feel like you kind of had the magic formula, knowing what it would take to stay at the top? Did you feel like you had it figured out at that time?
I think there's confidence is important, right? So I think I had that confidence that we could do that. And there's two other things. I think one thing, we tried to do a very good job, and Scott did a great job. My current coordinator, Ben George, does a great job. You got to tweak to your talent. Change your scheme to, tweak it to your talent, but not overhaul it, if that makes sense. So I think offensively, we would maybe throw a little more one year, pass a little more the next year. And then I'm a big believer in the next thing I'm going to say. Once you start winning a couple seasons, the kids start believing in you, the coaches. Not me, the head coach, but the coaches. And then when the kids start winning and the kids come up in a winning program, they expect to win. I'm telling you, I've seen it happen in the schools where I've taught and other programs. When they don't win, what do the kids do? You question the coaches. And what do the juniors, seniors, sophomores do? They start questioning the coaches. And the underclassmen hear that, and they don't believe in the coaches. If you've come up in a winning program and all the kids talk about is how good the coaches are and all we expect to do is win, it feeds itself. Mm-hmm. It's like Scott said, winning is contagious. And that's why you look at Liberty. Look at the run they're on. I mean, the kids expect – Casey Moeller is like what to the people of Liberty right now, right? Yeah. You think if he tells the kid to jump, what are they going to do? So it just – I think it's true of a lot of programs, but I'm telling you, if you get in a winning streak, kids start believing in the coaches. They don't question things, and I think it's a little bit of both.
Maybe a tough question to answer, Coach Inselmann, but how do you get to that point? Is there a formula? Can you put that into words for us?
Oh, I don't know.
There's just a lot of hard work.
Yeah, but to me, that's arrogance, because there are a lot of coaches out there that work hard and put time into it. You got to be creative. You got to have a great staff around you. You got to have talent, great community support. But I will say, once you get it going, it's kind of like a locomotive, Then it just kind of goes on its own. But to say that, we outwork people, I don't believe that. There's a lot of good, hard-working coaches out there that, they don't have maybe that success or that talent around them. That's a good question. If I could figure it out, I'd put it in a bottle and a formula and I'd sell it.
Yeah.
The thing I've always said, and I've said it on our podcasts and stuff, I've told Lynn this many times. I probably told you, Bill. Scott, would you agree with me? There's nobody better that I've ever been around in coaching that does a better job of refocusing his team every week, whether you're playing Liberty Center or you're playing somebody you're heavily favored against. I thought that Bill Inselmann is the very best at grounding his team and getting them refocused every week. And I think that's why you guys have played at such a consistent level, not just season to season, just over the years, over the last couple decades, because every week you are the best, Bill, at hitting that reset button, and you can make the last place team in the league sound competitive, and the kids believe it. That's a gift you have.
Well, thank you. Scotty, what do you think how we did that? Or
Well, I'd agree with Tory on that. And sometimes you had to even be a little creative, like when Tory Swiss cheese story, you know.
That's Scotty,
That's a story in itself. But
yeah, I didn't think that was going to come up. And remind me on the podcast or something, Lynn. I can tell that story, but
And it's for public knowledge.
it
Yes.
can be now. But this is pre-AI, pre-computer, pre-internet.
Well, can we share it right now? Because there's people out there watching and listening, and they're like, "Well, I want to hear the story now."
Well, I'll do it real quick, but I want to focus on these guys. But when I came aboard in '97, man, I was in heaven. I was in heaven. You know, I played for Rex, and I thought Rex's way was the only way you could win football games. And then I go coach for Coach Inselmann, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's more than one way to skin a cat in the way these guys related to their players and that. And I fit in. They accepted me right away. So, and Bill gave me a leash, man. He let me kind of do my own thing. So we're getting ready to play Brian, and they had a heck of a running back named Tim Newell. He was tough, and Brian was good. And I just thought, man, we got to do something to get our guys fired up. So I fabricate this newspaper article. Okay. And I was clipping like ads and advertisements from like the Crescent News and that. And I typed up an article, and I had a byline, and it looked like a real newspaper article. And then I slapped those advertisements on there, and I made copies of it, and it looked like somebody had just copied a newspaper article. And I had the Brian players and Tim Newell calling the Patrick Henry defense the Swiss cheese defense. and they can't stop me. I'll run all over them. And by kickoff, I was like, oh man, what I do? Because I thought we're going to kill this kid. Our guys were so out of their minds. And then we just start planting him. And our guys are going, yeah, Swiss cheese, huh? And poor Tim Newell's got to be going, what is this Swiss cheese? What I do? And oh my goodness, but it was fantastic. And it was great. It worked.
oh, it did work.
It worked. I don't know if he had 30 yards in that game. And he had been averaging 130.
That's how you get ready for every opponent.
it was a trap
game.
game. It was a trap game, and we were worried about it.
That's great stuff. I want to get to the 2005 season because that's why we kind of have you guys here. But you really had to refocus. You lose that game to St. Henry in 2004, and I know you guys don't like to talk about that game. But how did you get your kids right going back into 2005, or did you not have to do anything from a coaching's perspective just because this group was so hungry?
Well, we'll let a couple of them talk here in a little bit. I'll tell you what, that is in my 33 years coaching, no loss comes closer to that. And it's because we felt like we didn't have a chance to show ourselves. And would you three gentlemen agree to that? We were a good team. You could make an argument, and I could make an argument that might have been the overall best team that I've had. Okay? So let's put our 2005 state championship team, put it a year earlier. My three leading tacklers were Isaac Arthur, Tyler T.G., Justin Sonnenberg. Yeah, Dan Bailey, first teamer, John Spurgeon, Ben Botch. We had, along with then obviously the seniors from 05, it was a great team. And here we are playing St. Henry. And Lynn, do you remember the story or not? But it was
I was there.
Only game in Ohio, Final Four on grass. And obviously, I think St. Henry, I think they deferred. Yep, they deferred. So we took the ball. And to tell you how bad conditions were, second half, they gave us the ball the second time.
Ooh.
Because they knew that we wouldn't be able to do anything with it. They'd pin us back there and punt into the wind and that mud and then have a short field. So the players and the coaches, we just felt like, I don't want to use the word cheated because obviously you got to play football in all conditions. But the worst thing of that was was the mud. The wind, the rain were terrible, but you couldn't get traction. There was mud in the football. You couldn't do anything. So bottom line, we just felt like, man, we'd like to have played them on a regular field, regular situation, see what would have happened. And I know that probably doesn't sound right, but they went on to beat Amanda Clear Creek, I believe, 35-7 in the next week in the championship and beat us 13-0 in those conditions. We just wished we'd have had that chance. Going back to that, it was unfinished business was the theme. Okay. We want another chance at it. We felt that, we could have did it that previous year, and we wanted to prove that we could have done it. That was the motto of the team, and they accepted that.
Coach Leonard, what do you remember from that St. Henry game and then going into that 2005 season?
All I remember is Bill hit it on the head. We were never so down after a game. I mean, we as coaches kind of felt like, well, that was our chance. And we weren't sure, you don't get a lot of chances a lot of times. And we were afraid we might have missed our really only chance. And then luckily we were able to have another year and get it done the next year.
How many starters did you lose off of that 2004 team, if you remember correctly?
I can't remember the exact amount of starters, but
or how many seniors did you have on that year's team?
I think we had 15, if I'm not mistaken.
Could be.
So a pretty good chunk of your team.
Yeah.
For a smaller school.
Yeah. 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 We had so much depth from those two classes, and they fit together perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a great team we had there.
Did you think going into that 2005 season you would get back to that level, or what were your expectations in the off season, August, 2-a-day start and all that?
I felt we definitely had that capability.
Mm-hmm.
I really did. I really felt we could, but I will say this, Lynn and Tory, Scotty, see if you agree with this. I felt a lot more pressure in 2005 than in 2004. We thought we were going to be good in 2004, but we'd never been in that Final Four, not since 1977, right? At PH. So we knew we could compete in the league. We knew we were a good team by that point, but are we capable of going to Canton? Well, 2004, we thought, yeah, we are. And then that slipped away. So we thought that, yeah, we can compete in 2005 as well.
Scott, did you have that feeling with the defense you had coming back in 2005 that you could get to the mountaintop?
Well, I wouldn't say that I actually thought we would win the state, but, I thought, like Bill said, we're going to be very competitive. We got a great group coming back. And, I guess that's all I'd say about that.
Scott, I want to rewind a little bit and learn a little bit about your background. I remember your defenses, some of the things you like to do, some of the stunts and some of the barrel games and things you did. Yeah. Where did you learn your defense? Where did you come up with your philosophy?
Well, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, Tory. When I was in high school, we played a 5-2. I went to Defiance College. We played a 5-2. I went to Otsego for my first job, and Randy Donald was playing a 5-2. So that's really all I knew. But, you pick up the stunts. Everybody kind of has the same type of stunts, but we came up with some of our own.
Scotty, you remember I thought a really neat thing that you did. Remember we went and talked to Gary DeLuca at Lima Bath.
Yeah.
And we got what we called the mutt. Yeah. And he still calls it the mutt today in our defense. Mutt is where you have one defensive lineman pinched down and the other loop around him. So Gary DeLuca was very good to us. He was the king of the 5-2 in the WBL. So really, Scotty was the king of the 5-2 in the NWAL, and we met with the WBL best, and we got a couple ideas from him. And that's a great thing that Scott was willing to do that and meet with another coach like that to get better.
Scott, this is a question for you and Bill. And I remember you guys going to meet with different staffs and stuff. Would you prefer to go to clinics and listen to a bunch of coaches, or did you guys prefer to sit down with a coach or another coaching staff and pick their brains?
Much rather sit with a coaching staff and pick their brains, because they're, they'll tell you, clinics, everybody's talking, and you might pick up one thing at a clinic. When you sit down with somebody that you really want to learn something from, that what they're doing is similar to what you're trying to do, you get a lot more done.
Yeah, absolutely, Tory. Not even close. Scott's right. You want to go meet with staffs. We can't tell you how many times we met with other staffs, and then obviously other staffs came and talked with us as well. And then you exchange information. It's not even close. A clinic, you'll get a little nibble. When you meet with the staff, they tell you everything. It's neat.
So, Bill, I know people over the years have wanted to pick your guys' brains. How did you feel about giving out too much information? Did you not want to share your secrets? This goes for offense and defense. Or were you an open book? Like you'd tell them, or did it depend who it was, what league they were in? How'd that work?
Yeah, normally it wasn't within the league, except there was one coach. But I don't know. To me, people helped me along the way, and I always felt that I'm going to return that favor. You know, I met with Jerry Harris, Salina, so many staffs, Kidwell, Foster. We just did a lot of different things over the years that I always felt that people helped me, and I'm going to help them if they ask. But I did not hold anything back. We gave them our footwork, our timing, what our reads were. To me, that's part of that fraternity of coaching.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how strong that is anymore, but you can get so much on the internet now, right?
Yeah, you can.
Back then, if you wanted to learn, you went and talked to other coaches, and it just helped build that fraternity.
Yeah. Scotty, would you share with other coaches, or would you like to keep your secrets?
We didn't have any secrets.
I knew he was going to say that. That's good.
You get into the 2005 season. You start with Lipsick. Were you still at Lipsick at that time?
05?
Yeah, 05.
Yes.
Okay. What do you remember going into that game? Were you feeling you had a chance, or what was your pregame?
Can you give me just the opportunity? Can I rewind to 03 real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
When we went over to PH and won that game. Okay, so in 03, and Patrick Henry had controlled Lipsick, and in 2002 they beat us in double overtime at Lipsick, and in 2003 we go to PH. Okay, and I had some horses. I had Joel McDaniel. I had some dudes, and so how about this? We're winning the game 30-0 at halftime. Okay, and this is a true story. And I'm thinking to myself, how were we going to hang on? Because I wasn't stupid. We were up 30-0, and I've got Lipsick fans yelling at me on our way into the locker room, run it up, run it up. And I'm thinking, I just want to win by one. Final score 30-28. They go for two at the buzzer. We hold them. But a young man by the name of Marc Krauss had a little coming out party that day. And I remember going, these guys are going to be a problem the next couple of years. So we got our one. And that's the only one we got. And in 05, we got just run out of the stadium.
42-12.
Yeah, it wasn't even that close. But I knew. I think Marc was a sophomore. And I kind of knew a little bit about him. And so we kind of bracketed him in the first half in 2003. And we kind of held him in check. Well, they adjusted at halftime, as you would expect, started running him across the field. And our corner and safety to his side stayed put, playing zone. Well, he ran across, and he just carved us up. So, no, I knew what they were building.
But you were nervous going into that 05 game.
Oh, I was real nervous. I knew what was going to happen. And I was always pretty confident, but I didn't feel good about life that night. I'll tell you that.
And you guys kind of coasted through the regular season. Looking at your scores, Delta was 28-14, but that was kind of the only game that was iffy for you. Was Nate Kamick still at Delta that season, or he had graduated? He had graduated the year before.
Yeah.
I remember that game at 04 at your place. That was a heck of a game. They got you guys down pretty good, right?
Yeah. Well, our Scotty had a great philosophy that game. He said, we're going to let Kamick run wild in the first half and let him cramp up. And Scotty, that was brilliant. Mick started getting cramps. He wasn't the same after that. We won.
He did. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that night. Yeah, he had about 250 yards in the first half or something crazy like that.
He was something.
He was unstoppable. And you guys came back and won at the end.
Yeah.
Did Yarnell have a catch right at the end of that game?
Boy, I can't remember.
I was thinking he did.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I think so. But been too long ago. What do you remember? What do you guys recall from that regular season as far as games that maybe stuck out or moments that stuck out in that regular season as you rolled through it?
I like the way that we got ready for each game. Like Tory said, we did not have letdowns, and we had good practices.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they practiced like champions. We rarely had a bad practice. We never had a bad half followed by another half. And if you look at the scores, that's indicative of that. And just a team that showed up every day to practice and worked hard.
Yeah. At least 42 points in every game except that Delta game.
Yeah.
And you had a 60-0 in there against Jefferson. Oh, you guys were special that year.
Bill, I want to ask something, and this goes for Scott too, and maybe you don't want to talk about it too much since you're still actively coaching, but what always impresses me about Patrick Henry is your practices day in and day out. You're not just beating the daylights out of each other, right? You're not. But on Friday nights, you guys are as physical as they come, and they have been dating back to when Scott coached. How do you develop? How are you guys so physical, Bill, without beating the heck out of each other all week? Because you can't afford injuries and stuff.
That's the main reason we said, we're not going to take people to the ground. We can only be physical for so long in practice. We wanted to avoid injuries. So I think we did a lot of extra work in drills.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You can simulate things better in drills. You don't have to go 10, 15 yards, full go, banging people to prove your point. So we always did what we call to get a lock, a fit.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, if you have a pulling guard on the end, just like two rams on a mountainside, you want to get a fit, lock up. Your goal isn't to sit there and then bury them in the ground and put your helmet on top of theirs because you're going to have injuries, and we cannot afford that. So the kids responded with that. They understood that, we want to get physical in practice, but yet we're not going to beat the tar out of you. And that was just more than anything to avoid as many injuries as we could.
Well, it worked. It worked. I'll tell you that.
You get into the playoffs, and then Elmwood kind of has you on the ropes. What went wrong that night, and what finally went right for you guys to pull that one out, Coach Leonard?
I can tell you one thing. All the years I coached, that was our very worst defensive game plan we ever came up with. And we were getting run ragged in the first half. And then we went in at halftime. I don't even know what the score was, but I didn't talk to Bill the whole half. He had the offense. We took some of the coaches that were coaching defense, and we took the defensive backs into a room, and I basically said, we're scrapping what we've been doing. We're going back to what got us here. And I don't even know if Bill knew it until after the game, but we just changed everything there, and we still had trouble with them. I don't know. They had a very good offense that year. It was Al Tyson, the quarterback, and that was back when you didn't see spreads all that much, and they spread you out all across the field. I remember my son Brad we had him in man-to-man. He's running across the field when they're motioning. We were getting worn out before the play started. So we went back to doing what we do, which was playing more of a zone. And that, I'll tell you what, that was one of the toughest games we ever went through, because our season about ended right there. Luckily, little Ginger over there sitting, Ben George picked one off right at the end of the game to secure it.
I will say this, and piggybacking on what Scotty said, this applies to Ben George and now too, and Scotty. When it comes to halftime, I have nothing to do with defense. Okay. Sometimes I kind of ask them after the game, I say, hey, what changes did you make? In case they ask me on the radio, what'd you do different? But I want to commend Scott and then Ben. Bob George, my old D coordinator as well, in between Scott and Ben, they're great coordinators. And if you want a great coordinator, you want to believe in them, you got to let them do what they do. So they make all the adjustments on their own. I say nothing. I have no idea what's going on defense at halftime. So that's the beauty of football. You've got to have good coordinators around you, and you got to trust them, and they do it.
Scott, I want to go back to that game plan. You said you felt like it, and you're always pretty hard on yourself anyway, but you said it was one of the worst game plans. Did you Did they do some things you weren't prepared for? What you saw on film, did you think your game plan was good initially?
Well, we thought it was good when we went into the game, obviously, but it just wasn't working. So we had to make some changes, and we went back to doing what we're comfortable doing instead of, trying to do something that we thought we had to do. But like I say, we still had to hang on. I mean, it was I was very impressed with their offense. And then we were very happy after that game because we were going to go back to more normal offenses that we were going to be facing, what we were used to seeing in the NWAL.
Scott, had you seen any offense like Elmwood's before that, or was that something really new to you?
Bill, did we see anybody during the season? I don't think we did.
I don't think, not in our league, because our league's more of a
Right.
rock and sock and robot, and
everything's 5-2, 5-2. But obviously, when you're playing a spread team, we called a 5-2, but we weren't really playing a 5-2 because we would walk people off and do different things. We just called it a 5-2 so we could maintain our same terminology throughout, so the kids didn't have to learn something all new.
One thing I think Scotty would agree, this happens to every coach. If you coach long enough, sometimes you overthink, you get too sophisticated, right? And I remember going to a clinic many years ago. I can't remember who the speaker was, but it always resonated in the back of my mind. It's not what you coaches know, it's what your players know.
Right. Right.
And I thought about that, and I said, man, nobody knows a wing tee like Rex. Nobody knows like Dave Hansbarger, right? The counter tray, the belly X. You're going to find coaches that know their specialty. And then what does everybody try to do when they're all winning? Everybody tries to mimic what they're doing, but you can't do it because it's not what you know, it's what the players know. In other words, coaches have to be really good at what they're doing. You've got to do it for years. You've got to incorporate it. You've got to learn the nuances that go along with that. And I think at times maybe that's what happened. Like at Elmwood, we tried to get too cute, do too much, and our players didn't feel comfortable. We got them out of their comfort zone. And like Scott said, you went back to the basics and then play ball. So you'll find teams that win with a 5-2, the 4-3. You'll find teams that win with a spread, the shotgun, run and boot, you name it. It's what the kids know. It's not what the coaches know.
You know what's crazy about that? Everybody you played except for Elmwood en route to the state championship was undefeated when you played them.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
I've always wondered how many times that had been done. Wayne Trace was 11-0, right?
They killed everybody.
Yep. Winford was 12-0.
Yep.
North Lima South Range 13-0, and then Cincinnati Hills Christian Academy 14-0. So after that Elmwood, we're about stubbed our toe. We faced teams that had not been beaten and knocked off all four. That's something that was really neat. Yeah.
Wow. Scott, I'm curious your game plan going into the state championship game against CHCA, if you recall.
Well, I left all my paperwork behind, so I couldn't look at anything. What we did, we basically ran a 4-4 and a 3-4 is what it amounted to, using our 5-2 terminology.
Scotty, do you remember like I say, the only thing I ever really did was maybe when they did our defensive meetings on Sundays, I'd give a word or two, not very often. I will never forget this. When I walked into the coach's office on that Sunday, getting ready for Cincinnati Hills, Scotty, don't you remember what I told you?
I don't remember. Was it if we can stop the run with the 3-4, we're gonna.
That became our motto. But when I walked in, I closed the door and I looked at everybody. I said, "Okay, I don't care what you do." I said, "But you will not play man to man against this team."
Right, I do remember that
because every film I watched, they did all these crossing patterns.
Yeah.
And they were blowing everybody out. Everybody was 2 steps behind. They had the kid that went to Minnesota.
Yeah.
They were good. And I said, I don't care what you do, Scotty. I said, you will not play this team man to man. And then Scotty come up with a great game plan to mix up the front, to mix up the secondary coverages. And he flopped back and forth like a fish out of water. I know for a fact, talking to somebody, they went into that state championship game thinking PH always plays man, and they worked on their crossing patterns. And then when they came across and met Drew Kuza one time, they said, "Jeepers." That didn't feel good.
Oh, yeah,
Drew
he
was just
flipped that.
waiting for the crossing pattern and cut funk.
Well,
and I think that took the wind out of them right away.
Yeah.
And then Scotty, great game plan.
Well, our game plans, I don't take credit for them because we would do group things. I mean, we would sit there, Tory remembers that. We would go through formations, hash out, okay, how are we going to stop this? How are we going to stop this? And then we'd come to a consensus. And then I would just put it together on paper. And then, but we were all part of it.
Well, the weather that day made the hits feel a little worse too,
Oh boy.
because it was pretty chilly that day in Canton.
Lynn, funny story. So, you know, I'm a nervous type. I get that from my mother. So I remember waking up in the hotel room. It's the morning of the state championship game. And I slowly walked over to the window and I didn't want to open the curtains. I opened a curtain and I could see a little bit of snow on the ground. It was that cold. I'm thinking, man, how are my boys going to throw the ball and catch the ball in this stuff? And the old flag was whipping a little bit. And all I can say, as much as Scotty did a great job of mixing up our defensive looks and totally caught them off guard, offensively, no. We stood with our game plan, what we've done all year, and we just executed it unbelievably. The kids just did a great job. Unbelievable how we threw the ball and caught the ball that night, and then we mixed in the runs. It was awesome.
When did you kind of know that you had that game sewn up? Was there a moment late that you kind of knew that you had finally reached the top, the pinnacle of what everybody's striving for in Ohio football?
Probably about within 3 or 4 minutes, because, you know, even with a 2-touchdown game, you never know, right? But I will say this. I felt good at the beginning of the game when I came out my first formation and they single covered Marc Krauss. I thought, really? Okay. And they had a real good DB. I don't know. He was about 6'3", wasn't he, fellas? That DB, roughly?
I would
6'2". And he was good. And they thought he could handle Marc. And then we said, okay. And we threw hitches, fades, zeros to Marc, and we mixed in the run. Zack George, incredible game. That was probably the biggest thing, was seeing that they were single covering him and what we could do with that.
Oh, I remember that. I watched that game at Fawcett Stadium, and I thought the same because Cincinnati Hills Christian Academy didn't know or care who Marc Krauss was.
Well, I think their coach came out in the media that week and said, "Oh, we're going to cover we're going to single cover him. We can cover him."
I believe it, and it looked
if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and I remember sitting there going, "They're in trouble if they think they're going to do that," and they paid for it. It was beautiful.
The neat thing too was how well we ran the ball and mixed it up too. And Josh Stroop had a really, really good game. The toss was a big play for us. And here's a neat little side story. I don't know if many people know about it, but we had a toss. We just throw it to the fullback and pull Keith Kuzel. And Keith would go around there and he was just pancaking people. Kid you not, Wednesday the next week at school, the secretary calls up and said, "Hey, Bill, you've got a coach from Mount Union wants to talk to you." I said, "Oh." The coach from Mount Union called and said, "Where is that big tackle of yours going?" And they were that impressed with Keith Kuzel on his pulls and how he got out there. And we just mixed things up and executed things tremendously.
Yeah. I'll let you guys wrap up this segment. What's so special about that season 20 years later, and why do you think that team was so special from your perspective?
Well, we've never duplicated it again. That's one thing. And like Bill said, the kids, they were fun kids. Practices were fun. You know, I don't know. It was just a great year. Anytime you go 15-0, it's a great year.
Yeah. Scotty would agree with me. Once you win that state championship, it's like a permanent smile.
Yeah.
That, you know, right or wrong, you get judged by if you win that big thing. I don't care if it's a Super Bowl. I don't care what it is, the Final Four in basketball. It's just a great feeling. And that was a big part of my speech, you guys, pre-game, right, Scotty? I said, we have the chance next week to turn our equipment in 15-0. You never lost with that helmet on. You never lost with that jersey on. And the kids they played well. It's just great group of kids. But, you know, like say that, and that kind of goes back to 2004. we felt we had that type of team there too, and it was unfinished business. I think that made it more special, right? That we felt we could have done it in 2004. We didn't get a chance, and these guys came back and did it in 2005. Just a great feeling, great group of kids.
Why did you feel so much pressure going into that 2005 season, Coach?
Scotty nailed it. You don't get many opportunities in life at certain things. And in your coaching profession, how many coaches never get that opportunity, right?
The majority.
Majority. In 2004, we were that close to it. And I still say, and I'll probably make enemies at PH with some people. I still say 2004 was the best overall team I had. Both sides of the ball, depth, everything. And I think we kind of knew that. Man, we got a lot coming back. Is it going to be good enough? And you just don't know if you're ever going to get that chance again. So it just a great feeling, and you got to take advantage, I guess, when you get that chance. And when it happens, it's an incredible feeling.
Have you ever had a feeling anywhere near that in your coaching career outside of that, or is that's it?
That's it. That's the pinnacle. Scotty, you agree?
I would agree with that.
Nothing like it.
Yeah.
No.
Coach Leonard, Coach Inselmann, thank you guys so much. We'll get into our next segment with Zack George, and I don't know who else we're going to send up here. We'll get into that after we hear a message from KK Collision. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time. Yep. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Good seeing you, Scott.
You too.
KK Collision is a leader in the auto repair industry that has been servicing Northwest Ohio's auto needs for over 27 years. We offer a fast and reliable repair option that stands above the competition. When your vehicle enters our facility, you can be assured that you have chosen the most technologically advanced repair facility in the area. KK Collision is an automotive body and mechanical shop, as well as both a light and heavy-duty towing service located in Liberty Center. Our towing services cover Northwest Ohio and the surrounding area 24 hours a day. Are you in need of a repair estimate? Visit us anytime during business hours for a free estimate at T556 Ohio 109 on the north side of Liberty Center, or call 888-533-7801 or visit our website at kkcollision.com. Right, welcome back to our second segment with the 2005 Patrick Henry State Championship team on our KK Collision football show here for week number 9. Joined from Texas, Zack George and Ben George is with us as well. A couple of you're both seniors on that season.
I was a junior.
You were a junior, weren't you? Yeah. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to do this. We appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you having us on.
Zack, what in the heck are you doing in Texas, man?
Good question. It's kind of a long journey. So I'm down here I sell industrial gas, man. So I've been a little bit all over. I got a gig down in Houston, and now I live outside of Austin. So I've been in here about 4.5 years now. So with an industrial gas company for over 10 years now. So they're treating me well, and I'm just down here trying to survive the heat, get to late fall here, and Texas has been good to me, Coach.
So do you wear cowboy boots and cowboy hats and stuff like that, or no?
Yeah, sometimes, absolutely. Yeah, I got a horse down here. We ride occasionally out in the countryside, man. So awesome. I got a couple acres. I'm doing my thing down here, Coach. Yeah, you catch me at the right time. I'll be wearing my boots and hat. Absolutely.
Benny, what do you think of this?
He's a chameleon. He seriously is. You could play him anywhere in the United States of America and he'd fit in. It's unbelievable. So it's unbelievable.
Do you ever think you'd seem like this, Coach Strock?
But Ben's right. Zach's always been a chameleon. He can blend in anywhere.
Oh, I don't know about blending in. He's just
he might stand out, but he can fit in anywhere. Zack, what's it like to be like the only George that's ever left the county, man?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, I'm the only one that's not that doesn't have my fingerprint on PH football. So
well, you have your fingerprint on it, all right.
Yeah, we've had some good success for sure, and I'm very proud of it. And I'm really proud of my dad, my Uncle Ben, my cousin Ben, my cousin Aaron, my brother now. It's a legacy program. It's a family program. And we're really proud of PH football. I'm super proud. I listen to you guys. I talk to my brother. I talk to Ben. I talk to Aaron. We're on a group text every day, night and day. And I know just as much about what's going on as anybody, I think, and I'm really tight with Coach Krauss or with Coach I and everything that's going on over the years. So as far as me not kind of being back there are times that it hurts, especially in the fall, especially when we're playing kind of the team that I think you guys are in their backyard with right now. It burns me up a little bit, but yeah, life's been interesting for me. Started in I went to school in Detroit, played football at Wayne State, and then I coached there for a couple years too. I was there for a long time, and then just some odds and ends, started making a little bit of money, and then went down to Gas Vortex and led me to gas country down here. So yeah, it's kind of my journey, Coach.
That's awesome.
Well, you know what? I'm a little disappointed because we can't get Todd Peterson on these shows, and we can't get his dad on these shows, and they live right here.
I know.
But we can get Scott Leonard in Florida, and we can get Zach in Texas on here. I'm a little bit hurt right now.
Hey, they're doing the God's Work Village Council meeting tonight, Dessler. So, you gotta read, listen to Klecker in the morning and the update in Northwest Signal, I guess, figure out what they did tonight.
Hopefully a fight.
Those are
doesn't
two
break
tough
out.
guys to track down now.
Yeah,
Those are two tough guys to track down, especially Coach Pete. You never know where he's at, man.
He's been going to stop at our podcast since the inception of the podcast, which was 2019. I've heard him dozens of times. So I'm going to stop. I'll be at the podcast. Still waiting on him.
I think we got the two best Georges on
I
here
agree.
tonight.
I agree with that. We just had Coach Inselmann on here, Zach, and he talked about the day of the state championship game. He woke up, opened up the curtain, and it was kind of snowing. It was cold. It was blowing a little bit with the wind. What do you remember from that morning as you walked outside and saw the weather conditions? Because they weren't ideal for a quarterback.
Sure, yeah. So we got in on Thursday. We took a bus ride over and we practiced at Akron on Thursday in the indoor, and we had a really good practice. It was a really neat practice. We had everybody there. We went through our Thursday routine. Our passing game was on point. We looked sharp as ever. We were dialed in. That was, one of the themes to that trip was it's a business trip. And I woke up. I remember I roomed with Marc, and we woke up and we knew it was going to be cold. We had the way we played the game, we followed the weather pretty close than other schools might, right? Because it just affected what we did at times, right? And I had a pretty good arm. I threw a pretty good ball, and you could knife through that, but you had to be a little strategic on what to call. We had some long field throws as well, so you had to be a little strategic on what the situation was, what to call, when to call it, and whatnot. But waking up that morning, Lynn, that's a good question. We were dialed in, man. We didn't care what the temperature was. We didn't care what was going on. We would rather have snow than rain any day. The wind was tough, but CHCA was a spread team as well. So it was freezing. I do remember that. I think that the game time temperature was 22, and there were flurries. But at the same time, it was kind of charming. It was like December 4th or 5th or something like that. We were playing at the Hall of Fame Stadium, and it was kind of a dream come true. I've got my ring on my mantle. So waking up that morning, I remember I was dialed in. I was fired up, and I was really dialed in and just really focused.
Well, after you went through the weather in the state semifinal the year before, I'm sure you were happy with anything as long as it wasn't rain and mud, right?
Yeah, that was tough, right? So, looking back on '05, I think the 2005 team is a culmination of 2 years. 2004 was a very special team for Patrick Henry, and I think we're joined at the hip with '04. So the '04 team had a bunch of really blue collar, tough seniors, a lot of guys. We had a lot of depth and a lot of late bloomers, right? And we provided the skill in '04, and we were picked third in the league. And if you remember that first game in '04 against Liberty, we were the ONN game of the week. Marc and Brian picked me up. I remember on Friday, and we go to the high school, and there's TV towers out there, and there's people lined up ready to get in. And Liberty and Delta that year were powerhouses, and we were kind of the afterthought. And we decided to open up that game in week 4 against Liberty, and we took them down. And a couple weeks later, we took down Delta. We came back and beat Nate Kamick and that powerful Delta team. Then we doubled up Liberty again in the playoffs in Napoleon to go to our first Final Four since Coach I was a junior. And it was very special. There was a certain buzz around the town, and as high as that high was, the next week was an ultimate low because we thought we were better than St. Henry, and we were put in a really tough situation with that monsoon on that mud field. I've never ever played in anything like that. It was terrible. It was a disgrace to the game because they were a really good team as well. And that was a state championship game because they went on to beat Amanda Clear Creek 60-0 the next week or whatever it was. So that hurt, right? I mean, that was really something that we carried with us that off season for a long time, and it motivated us. We had an edge about us that whole year, and I know I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but we had an
No,
edge
you're
about us.
good.
We had an edge about us that whole off season where we were just so dialed in and we were so focused, and we lost that our whole interior. We only had Billy Vance back. We lost everybody in our front seven, so we had to plug and play guys. So the leap that everybody knew Marc. Marc's a specimen. The leap that Brian Yarnell made was incredible, and he was really good in '04, but he was just incredible in '05. And we knew we had to take our game to the next level because we had to offset what we lost in '04. So, just kind of going into '05, we were just a super focused team, and we were really driven that whole year to get back to that Final Four game and then get that next leap to get to Canton. That was what we wanted to do.
But do you remember the seniors' mindset going into that '05 season because you were a junior that season? What do you remember the kind of the mindset of those seniors going into that new year?
Yeah, and I actually think it started in the locker room after we lost St. Henry. I was fortunate enough to play some special teams as a sophomore, and looking up to those seniors that year, I mean, not only were they exceptional blue collar football players, they were like exceptional blue collar men and guys that are just incredible program players. And, I saw Justin Sonnenberg in school today, and I told him, I said, dude, Sonny, like, I have the honor of going on this podcast tonight, but I shouldn't be the one sitting in this chair. It should be Sonny, or it should be John Spurgeon or Isaac Arthur. And a lot of those guys that paved the way, and even the class before with Chris T.G. and Tyler Ham and those guys, right? So, like, it's a program championship. I was just fortunate enough that it was my junior year and I got to play a role. But I remember that locker room, and it was devastation at Lima Bath. Like Coach I mentioned, there's certain things in life you don't know. Like, is this the only shot we're going to ever have, right? And so the off season begins, and we have our skill back, right? We have Billy only on the offensive line, no other offensive lineman. Need to replace a tight end, halfback gone. Defense, we have Billy and Victor up front, and that's it. Secondary, Brad and Marc. So we had to replace at least 7 guys plus backups in defense. And so we had like the shining parts. You had your quarterback, you had your stud receiver, you had Strub and Yarnell, but what wins you football games is what we had to replace. And so I think a lot of guys like myself and others took it upon us and said, hey, like, we got to jump on board, and we got to follow the lead of Zach, and we got to follow the lead of Marc and Billy, because from the outside, yeah, we had like the fantasy football team, but did we have the team that could actually finish the job? And so there was probably a tougher job than what a lot of people are wanting to admit, because we lost an incredible senior class in '04. And so it started in the offseason, and Coach I's always had a great offseason program. Zach, I mean, we would throw Z, what would you say, outside of like, not like with camp days. I mean, we threw 3-4 days a week, just us. This player ran passing game.
Yep.
Player ran like organized stuff, like just fine tuning those things. And like you said, those jumps that even Marc made, obviously Brian made, and other guys made, was because I think that hunger and that hurt that we remembered probably in the locker room, even from a guy that just played special teams in '04.
to do it and realize, like, for us to give ourselves another chance. And so,
Zack, did you guys kind of mope around after that loss, or were you just ticked off and ready to get into the weight room and get ready for a new year after that St. Henry loss, if you recall?
No, we moped around. I think Ben had to pick me up off the floor. I think I was in there for about 30 minutes. I think I just went down. It was devastation, Lynn. It was something I'll never forget. Unfortunately, I've never watched that film. Never will. Don't really like to we're stuck on St. Henry here in that Final Four. Don't really like to discuss it much. Because we go back to back and we're 30-0 over 2 years, and that would have just put us on another platform. And that's really, I think, where we were. There's discussion around the community to this day that '04 is better than '05, right? I mean, say it might be. I just talked to Ben on the way here. I don't know if the '05 team beats the '04 Liberty team. Just how that team was constructed was really special. And it took a lot to get over that. I had some coaches at my house when I came back. It took a lot to get over that game. It was not something that you just, all right, let's hit the weight room, let's go on to basketball. It tore me down really bad, really bad. Which, then there's that whole discussion too. If we win it in '04, what's our mindset going into '05? Do we carry that edge with us in '05? Do we take that next step? Do we elevate ourselves? I mean, I don't know, because I do, like Ben's saying, like those '04 seniors were a tremendous group, and how close we were to them, and we were joined at the hip, and we played for them in '05. They were in our locker room before games. They were with us the whole time, and they were a special group. So that was a tough one to get over, and I just, when that clock hit 0 in Canton, man, I felt the weight of the world. I put it on myself, but it just came off me. It was just, no matter what we did in '05, every week was a big win, and then it was just like on to the next one right away. It was just, even in the playoffs. I remember beating South Range at Fremont in this. I mean, that, you want to talk about a cold game. Our playoff run was freezing. Uh, the South Range game was a shoot. They were all shootouts, but that game had ice shards on the field. I mean, there was snow pushed to the side. I remember coming out of the tunnel, and I see Greg Mullins from the '96 team standing there in his coveralls, and we locked eyes because I was a water boy in '96 when the program really ascended. And that '96 team, that was my favorite team of all time. All those seniors and they were kind of lined up there. Greg Mullins and Paul Miller and Brian Wright and Hebe and Gherkin and all those guys. That was so special. So to see them 10 years later was like it's like life coming full circle to me. And we won that game to get over the hump and to get to Canton, and then immediately you just think, like, now you got to win it. You just can't go there to go there. You got to bring it home. And when that clock ran out in Canton, it just, like, I've never felt that just weight off my shoulders. I carried a lot. Coach I puts a lot on his quarterbacks. He always has. And our game plans and our playbook was growing that year because of our experience and because of what we wanted to do. And we had a lot to cover and a lot to perfect. And 15 straight weeks of just trying to reach perfection was a lot, for when I was 18. And I was, like I said, it's 20 years ago. Very, very proud of it. Still am, always will be.
real quick, going back to your question, Lynn, Coach I has as much to do about it as anybody, like the whole mantra of unfinished business. But one thing that I just remembered is he would never let us say the word can.
Yeah.
He never allowed us to say the word can. So, like, it was a word we could not say until we earned it. And I remember in that post game, we're in the end zone, we just beat South Range, won the state semifinal, and we finally out loud all said can. And I think at that moment, it didn't matter who the heck was going to play us that next week. I think that was the hump we had to get over, because that was the St. Henry. That was getting over that locker room the year before. That was all the blood, sweat, and tears. And finally, we were able to say, we're going to the Mecca. We're going to Canton. And that was Coach I, as much as he is, he is incredible at a lot of different things. Motivating is up there, maybe hit number one with him. And I remember that. And it was almost like a relief, like, yeah, we're going to Canton. And it was pretty special.
Zack, you alluded to one of my other questions I wanted to ask, but I want Ben and you both to touch on some of your recollections of the early years of PH football. You mentioned some of those 96 guys, but as you guys are growing up in the communities of Patrick Henry, what were your thoughts? What got you excited?
Sure. I love this question. So my dad started coaching football. PH is, going in, we had a tremendous basketball program, as you know, Coach. Coach Krauss is my guy. I love Coach Krauss and what he did building the basketball program, and kind of going back to the inception of Patrick Henry, right? The three school districts merging as one. It was basketball in our blood. In football, we had a really good run in the 70s, which is crazy because the program just started in 69, and then it really faltered, right? And then Coach I comes over and takes over, and I'm gonna probably mess this up, 91 maybe. And it really wasn't getting off the ground until he met with Bel Air, I believe, at the state championship and said, hey, we can go into this timing passing game and use some of our basketball athletes to kind of separate us from the league. The league's Coach, you know this, man. You were there in what, 92 and 93, you took your guys to state. What a physical league the NWOL was in the 90s. Just bloody nose league. We weren't, why bang your head against the wall? Let's do something a little different. We still have a run game, but let's do something a little different. So my dad started coaching ball in 94, and I hopped on the sidelines to be a water boy. I think I was about 10. And that 96 team was so special because we were picked 7th in the league. And, we upset Lipsick week 1. I think they had a quarterback named Kreinbrink. He went to Northwestern maybe.
This guy's well educated on his football history.
He is, man. That's pretty good.
So we upset them 44-34, and we got this quarterback named Brian Hebert, and tell you what, he's pretty good, man. And we started lighting it up, and we got Gherkin, and we got Tony Heiser comes out for football. And we got these seniors. The 96 team reminded me so much of our 04 team. A mix of 96 seniors who were interior laden, late bloomers, gritty dudes, nasty, with Paul Miller was just an Adonis, and Brian Wright and Brent Winsink was a junior in the backfield. We had Mullins and Beckstein. We had everybody. And then the game in week 4 or 5 where we upset Liberty at home 22-20 in the rain was just pandemonium. They missed the field goal at the end, and we rushed the field. And then, we beat Archbold that year, and then we get beaten at Bowling Green against Woodmore. Then we turn it around the next year, and 46-44 game over at Liberty, and then we run the table and then get beat by them in the Snow Bowl, which is weird too. I talk about 04, 96 and 04 being kind of similar. But then, for us to beat Liberty in 04 at Napoleon never hosted a playoff game until us and Liberty, right? I think there was between 6,000 and 7,000 people at that game. When we walked out of the tunnel from the school to the stadium, I remember Marc laughing kind of cynically because he couldn't believe how many people were there. It was unbelievable. So for us to then knock Liberty out felt once again like kind of everything came back around, right? But it was the program just built 96 and 97, put us at a certain level where we wanted to be, and then it kind of came back down. We couldn't get over Liberty. They were beating us up, and Delta started beating us up, and we had some good players, but we just couldn't get over that hump until 03, and then it kind of started off, and then we took it in our own hands in 04, and that's why 04 was so special. But love that 96 team and 97. There were so many great players. They were like our role models around the community. What they did was just unknown at that time. We went to state in basketball in 92, and then we won it in 97, and we were just so terrific. But the football team was, my grandpa, or Ben and I's grandpa Clyde helped build the field, put the trees that are in the west end zone that are still there. And it's a legacy program, and we're proud to have our name on it. Sorry, that was a long answer, but
that's a great, Zack. That was fantastic, dude. That was awesome. Ben, your recollections. I don't know if you can top that.
Following that,
I got 2 moments, in both are the Liberty Center games in 96, 97. I'm like first, second, or third grader maybe at that time. And I just remember in both moments, like as a kid, you don't remember all the details of the game, but I can visualize both final plays and the storming of the crowd in the rain. Actually, in 96, it was the sideline that went bonkers and how the sideline stormed the field. At home, the kick was missed in the east end zone in the rain, and it just was pandemonium. And then in 97, how that game played out as far as the comeback, the onside kick, which I believe you had a small part in that, the untimed down, and it just wild. And I remember just the feeling of what that was like as a young kid and thinking, holy smokes, I have to do this when I get older. This is like, this is the greatest thing in the world. And I think that's why that rivalry is so great, because you could pick how many different generations of kids and identify different games for both sides and say, that's the reason that kid grew up loving football for both sides. And I think that's why there's a lot of respect for each other. And it's funny how the rivalry's gone. It's been a lot of like big swings both ways, right? Where they've gotten us and we've gotten them, and now they're back getting us. But consistently we give each other our best. And I don't know if everyone else can say that all the time about each other. But those two games in 96, 97, I think helped myself, him, a lot of young kids end up playing in the 2000s, made them love the game of football.
Yeah. Yeah, you can go to the Liberty side, and a lot of them talk about the 92, 93 seasons that kind of got them to the mountaintop in 97. And you guys are talking about kind of the same things as time passes on, that you cherish those moments and want to be like those guys. Zack, as you went into that 05 season, were you thinking state championship in August when two-a-days started, or what was you guys' mindset at that point of that season, if you recall?
That's to go into a season and think that far down the road is tough to do. And you don't ever really want to put yourself out there like that. I think you want to go into the season, and there's so many unknowns with us, Lynn. But yeah, at the end of the day, in 05, it would have been a really big disappointment if we didn't make a run at it. So yeah, I think at the level and expectations that we put ourselves in throughout the summer from the year before, and what we got back, we took it upon ourselves from the skill positions almost to the point where it's like, hey, if we can just patch things up front, and do some things from a protection standpoint, I don't know who's going to stop us. Um, and so 2 days, we wanted to take it one day at a time and enjoy the process and get better. But to your question, yeah, at the back of our mind was a state championship, 100%.
Zack, when did you maybe put your mind at ease knowing that offensive line could hold up in that 05 season? Was it in practice? Was it a game? If you remember.
Yeah, we started off with Lipsick and then Montpelier and Swan. It was week 4. It was the Liberty Center game. So, 3 times in one year, when we stood up against those guys with a new bunch of cats up front. And if you go back and watch that film, this is weird that I know. I think I was 14 for 17 for about 205, somewhere in that range. And I had all day to throw. And when I got all day to throw, and I'm throwing to Marc, and I'm throwing to Brian, and Brad Leonard's running a 4-7 from the tight end position, and then you got this sophomore coming out of nowhere wearing number 6 named Drew Kuzel, and they can't play the run anymore. They got to drop. And then Josh Strube takes just a huge leap from junior to senior year, and is just a tremendous fullback. I mean, you want to talk about a position group at Patrick Henry that gets overlooked. We've had some of the best fullbacks that you can name going back to the early 90s, and Struby's up there with the best of them. Again, when we really got after Liberty in 05, and I was clean, and I hit like 2 or 3 times in that game. I was like, Biggie Kuzel, Jay Led. We had a really big right side, and we had an athletic left side. And what we did was we sent our stud fullback that way, and he cleaned up the mess. So anything that leaked, he cleaned it up. And every time a defense did something, we had a different answer. So we were always one step ahead. But after that Liberty game and what we did over there for 3 times in one year, by the way, is state championship was really special. Beating Liberty Center 3 times in 365 days that's a real close 1A.
I'm curious your
Hey,
perspective.
no, you know what's funny? He can say that from Texas.
Yes.
As all the other Georgians
Hey.
taking bullets from Coach Moeller and the
Yeah,
guys.
yeah.
He can confidently say that
Yeah.
from Texas. So I apologize, everyone, for his banter.
I want to get your perspective because you played on the defensive side.
Yeah.
What made that offense so special? And then Zach, what made that defense so special? Because you had to go up against it in practice each day. Whoever wants to start.
Offensively, there's no days off. They had every reason to just put it in cruise control on a Tuesday practice or to put it in cruise control on a quote unquote off week. And it was never that. I can't remember how many. I mean, there can't be many days that we had an off day in passing game ever. Like it was crisp, it was sharp, led by Z because Z was not going to allow anyone to take a rest. But like Marc and Brian didn't just decide like what last year was good enough. And then like he said, a kid like Drew Kuzel who didn't play any snaps as a freshman, and now he's coming in and he's playing an incredibly huge role as the year progresses. And also he played a little bit of a role in the passing game when we go ace. I just think it was that constant push to be our best on a day-to-day basis and not just saying, we're just going to allow what we did last year to get us to where we need to be. That's where they were really good. And the accountability that they held each other to, that Coach I held us to, I would say why is our offense was dynamite.
Great answer.
Love it, Benny. So defensively, I think how we were in '05 was kind of we started off a little bendy. We didn't really know who we were, what we had. We had a lot of new guys, like we reiterated at the beginning. And at first, we kind of didn't have so much of an identity. The Liberty game, they were playing right with us, and they were doing what they could for the first half. And I think we found ourselves in the second half. And once our defense got confidence, we stopped, that bend but don't break defense. We didn't bend as much. And on defense, we had we had 2 really good safeties, Benny and Marc, and then our corners were really good. Brad Leonard was such a stud on the perimeter. And, an unsung hero in '05 was our middle linebacker wore the green dot, as
Elliott
Coach
Smith.
Strock likes to say, man, was Elliott
Elliott
Smith,
Smith.
man.
Yeah.
Elliott Smith was
Yeah.
a banger, and he
Mhm.
cleaned up tackle to tackle. And then in the playoffs, what we did was we started playing Josh Stroop and Brian Yarnell on defense, and we said we're going for the Gold Cup, and we played. It was all hands on deck. And once we got everybody out there, we had a really formidable bunch. Our ends, Clint Krager and Tom Bush, got so much better as the year went on. Victor was terrorizing guys in the interior, and Biggie, Billy, and Jay Led were just big defensive tackles that kind of played like a kind of a 2-gap role for us. Didn't get a lot of depth, but you couldn't run the ball on us, and it forced teams to throw. We were so athletic on the back end, you couldn't throw on us. And I think really what was key in '05 was when we got a lead, we freaked the other teams out. It was just, oh boy, we got to keep pace with PH. All right, we punted. It's over. You punt one time to our offense in '05, it's over. Now we're up 14. Now you're getting out of your game plan. That's exactly where we want you to be. And it was a mind game. So defensively, just was a year that we built. Every game, every week, we just continued to get better. We found ourselves, and it was a group that you could hang your hat on. You know, they let up some points, but you know they played such a role that not you know with the offense that we had, it was a good tandem.
Yeah, you gotta remember too in '05, I mean, everyone was running wing tee, at least on our 10-game schedule. Everyone. And so everyone knows the Elmwood story about how that situation was. But we saw spread against Elmwood, spread against Wayne Trace. Winford was more traditional. South Range was a little bit more traditional than obviously 5 wide against CHCA. And so 3 of those 5 games, we saw offenses that you see every week now here in 2025 or a lot of times, right? But they were not normal. And I give a lot of credit to Coach Leonard, how he was able to quickly adapt. Like, our first half game plan against Elmwood, listen to Coach I, it was probably too much for us to take on because it was so new all at once. So we went back to the roots and the basis. And I remember the simplicity of our state championship defense from the standpoint of coverage. Everything from the back end matched the front end. And nowadays, like calling defense, that has to happen. But that wasn't something that I think a lot of defense coordinators thought about. A lot of defense coordinators, you stop the run, it's over with, right? And I give Coach Leonard a lot of credit for, I guess, fast tracking us and preparing us for those spread offenses as we got deeper into the playoffs and doing a great job of putting in a game plan that was going to be efficient, but also simple and easy for us to understand and allowed us to play fast and confident. And he did a great job, so he deserves a lot of credit.
Outstanding. These guys are great. We have one more segment, and I don't want to keep those guys waiting too much longer.
So, appreciate you guys having us.
Benny, Zach, thank you guys so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you guys so much. This
you.
is great. Coach Lynn, you guys look great. I appreciate that. Good listening to you all the time, too. Keep up the good work. Appreciate it.
Good seeing you, Z.
Great seeing you, Z, man.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna
get it rolling. I'll be home. And what's up, Lynn?
I said I'm gonna get down to Texas, and I want you to show me around sometime.
All right, come on down. Come on down to Austin. That's about all I got. Yeah. Hey Ben, get the train rolling. I'll be home in 4 weeks. We got to rematch.
He's gonna be home, so yeah. Hey,
okay.
Get him on for a guest picker.
Okay.
Hey,
oh yeah.
Try him out a little bit
during the playoffs.
I want you to wear the cowboy hat though.
All right. I'll bring it with me.
I love it. We'll be back with our final segment with the 2005 state championship Patrick Henry team. American Freedom Energy and Grandma's General Store off Route 24 on State Route 109, just south of Liberty Center, now has 88 unleaded fuel and is your one-stop shop for fuel, food, drinks, and much, much more, including locally raised meats and home-baked goods. American Freedom Energy and Grandma's General Store is proud to support Black Swamp Football and is the host of the Black Swamp Football podcast, football show, and Saturday mornings Rise and Rewind. Stop in and see Glenn and Greg today and make American Freedom Energy and Grandma's General Store a part of your everyday routine. Back to our third segment of the KK Collision football show this week with some more Patrick Henry guys from the 2005 state championship team. Guys, thank you so much. Brian Yarnell, Marc Krauss, and Brad Leonard up here with us here. Go ahead, Coach Strock. I asked enough questions in the last segment.
I know the answer to a lot of these questions, but our listeners don't. I want to know, and we should have asked Zach and Ben and those guys this, but one thing I remember about you guys, even growing up, long before 2005, is you guys, and this includes Ben and Zach and everybody, you guys were one of the most cohesive groups that I can remember as far as just how strong your friendships were through the years. Talk about that a little bit, just the brotherhood you guys had, not only on the field, but off the field.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we, especially us Deschler guys, Brad came along a little bit later being the handler boy, but it was school, go home, change your clothes, grab a snack, ride your bike back to somebody's house. We were going to be playing pickup football at Grandma Rader's house. We were playing wiffle ball in the summer, basketball down at the DMA when it was nice out. So, that's what we did. And then just an amazing way to grow up. A lot of great memories. And like you said, from from like first grade on, that's what we did every day.
Brian, what are your thoughts on the cohesiveness?
Yeah, Marc basically nailed that. I mean, whatever sport it was at the time, it was either we're going to the DMA and playing basketball, Grandma Raiders playing football. I mean, we knew right when that bell rang last period, we were all meeting up playing somewhere. Marc just lived down the street from me. It's kind of crazy. I still remember Marc and Zach's landline phone number still today.
Yeah.
Like we didn't have cell phones, so you just knew to call 0512. And I'd get, yep.
278 in
Oh,
Deschler,
yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, man, that's basically, we just did that all the time. Backyard football, everything. Yeah, Zach was throwing to me and Marc when we were 6 years old.
So was there a ringleader? I know you guys all agreed, hey, we're getting together and playing ball, but every group, every gang has a leader that says, all right, boys, this is where we're playing, this is what time. Who was the ringleader?
Zach.
Z, yeah.
Was he?
Z, yeah. He was definitely the vocal leader, and it started when we were in second grade, right? Like you said, the guy bringing everybody together, and it didn't change. And what a leader he was, right? He would fire us up. He knew exactly what to say to get everybody going. Being the quarterback, he was also one of the hardest workers on the team. So whenever your leaders are also the hardest workers on the team, that's really what sets the bar for your team and the success you're going to have. And Z was that way from a very young age, for sure.
Brad, touch on the friendships and the brotherhood you guys had on and off the field.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, our parents are all real good friends, so I know I was a Hamler kid, but I still knew these guys. We didn't get to hang out as much because we went to separate schools back then, but we still knew each other, and we had that bond from a young age. So as we got older, that just builds into what you're trying to achieve as a team status, but that all builds up. I remember even in junior highs, like I know in 7th grade we were still separated at schools, but for some reason there was a shuttle that would run to Deschler, so I would sometimes jump the shuttle to go over because I knew we had backyard football going on. So,
You probably knew the guy that could arrange your transportation, didn't
I
you?
knew the bus routes. Didn't always tell them I was jumping on there, so they might get a call at 6 o'clock. Hey, I need a ride home. But
Did you guys know that Zach was going to be the quarterback at a young age?
absolutely, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was, just a coach's kid for one, but just a nerd when it comes to football. We'd be playing backyard football, and he'd be drawing up pass concepts when we're in 4th grade, like, hey, you got to run the end, but you got to carry the over, and then you're like, what are you talking about, Z? Like, I'm just going to run around and you throw it to me, right? And, the guy was a gym rat, watching film left and right. Just one of those guys that knew football inside and out, and he was always like that way for sure.
I forgot to ask Ben and Zach when they were on, but who was the baddest dude on that 2005 team?
I would say Drew Kuzel.
A sophomore? You let a sophomore be the toughest dude on the team?
I always hung around with Drew, and I was always like, why are you trying to run people over? Why don't you run around him? Because people forget that Drew was really fast. Like, I think he barely missed state in the 100 meters his freshman year or sophomore year. And he was always headhunting with the ball in his hands. I'm like, just run around him.
Yeah, we had a few guys like Billy Vance had a screw loose, which is always great from your center and nose guard. Who else? Honestly, after that, we didn't have to do too much. Most of the time, we had a pretty good lead, and but yeah, I would say Drew for sure. That guy was wired different.
Okay. You agree, Brad?
Yep, completely agree. Drew's, I think he takes the cake.
Benny was shaking his head, too, that Drew was the baddest guy on that team. Huh. Did you know that at the beginning of the year, or did it take some time because he was a youngster?
I don't think so, yeah. He'd say being a sophomore, coming in, we knew him, but at that level, no. Through the year, it kind of grew. And
Yeah, I don't remember one play where it kind of clicked, but you knew he had the skills and he had the speed and everything like Brian mentioned, but he didn't really know how he's going to react to varsity football, right? You know, it's a different beast, especially when you're a young kid. So he was rotating with Zach Bonner and at the running back position, and you know, they fed well off each other. They had a good skill set that worked off of each other, and once he got Drew on the game field and the lights turned on, man, he'd run through somebody, and he loved every second of it.
Here's what I'd like you guys to touch on. There are certain schools, and if you hear the school's name, you think about a sport. This is a basketball school. It's a football school. So you say Liberty Center, obviously that's a football school. Liberty Benton basketball school, Ottawa Glandorf basketball school, right? Patrick Henry, for 40 years, basketball school. Part of that was your father, Marc, building that dynasty. But what happened to turn Patrick Henry into not only a basketball school, but in some people's mind, a football school? How does that happen?
I would say a big thing was the coaches. And then I remember being in high school, Coach I and Marc's dad, Coach Krauss, they worked really good together of like organizing, hey, we're going to have lifting at this time, and then we're going to go shoot hoops after lifting. So they did a really good job of that. And then, like I said, it's just coaching. Like I went and coached with Joe Kirkendall at Arcadia, and I think it's a lot of it is like our off-season program, what the coaches have done. Like we were lifting at a young age, we were running in the summer, we were doing a lot of workouts, just getting ready. And then when I went to coach at Arcadia, some of these kids never even lifted up a weight. So like we had like our coaching staff and all sports, even track, they were getting us ready for every other sport as well. But then football just kind of took off. I mean, we were just talking, how many games do you think we won in junior high? Not very many, and then we just kept working.
Yeah, we lost more than we won in junior high for sure.
Really?
Yeah, that's a good question. When it actually flipped, I think Brian hit it on the net. Like the coaches, you know, set the groundwork. I heard Coach I talk about and Coach Leonard talk about building the program, and it really was. And that's a huge thing across the board. It's a program. There's an expectation for what you're going to do. You know, once you hit high school, it was, hey, you can start lifting now, right? And that was like a badge of honor. Hey, I can get in there with all the high school athletes and we can start lifting, right? The House of Pain still got it labeled that, which is beautiful. And that really sets the groundwork. I mean, kids that maybe don't do much in junior high all of a sudden grow 4 inches and put on 30 pounds, start hitting the weight room and growing into their bodies. Next thing you know, you got offensive linemen, defensive linemen. You got a program, and it really just fed off each other. And then once there's a little success, I'll say that I've played a lot of sports at different levels. There's still nothing like Friday Night Lights, high school football. I don't care what you say. I've played in Fenway Park, played in some other cool places. Friday Night Lights are some of my best memories. So I think when the football programs kick in and really rolling, the community just feeds off that. And Patrick Henry definitely did. We like our sports over there. And, you know, once Coach I turned the program into a winner, it really just kind of snowballed.
When you were growing up, were you dreaming of winning a state championship in basketball, football? What was the ultimate when you were a young kid growing up in the Patrick Henry community?
I would say all of them, but
You got to pick one.
for me, it was football. I mean, I think growing up, you like all sports. I grew up, obviously, with a strong football background. I was around the program since I was as long as I can remember, so a lot of good memories out there. I mean, at a young age, I don't know if you're thinking about like state championship until you get up to a certain age, you realize what's going on, but certainly football for me.
I would probably echo, it doesn't really matter. It was success across the board. Seeing my dad and my brother do it in '97 on the basketball court was pretty special. But it had already been done there, right? So maybe it was more like, hey, let's do it in baseball or football because we hadn't won one there yet, right? And but honestly, like, and it's funny, my grandpa, my dad's father, the King Richard Krauss, he always thought we had a really good couple of years class run of baseball talent when we were, you know, coming up middle school and whatnot. And he even told me years after we graduated high school, like, I always thought you'd win a state championship, but I never thought it'd be football. He's like, I thought it'd be baseball for sure with, just the players you had and the amount of talent we had on a baseball diamond. So, I think if you'd have asked us in 6th, 7th grade, football, you're going to win a state championship, be undefeated, I probably would have said, we getting some move-ins or what's going to happen?
Really?
Like Brian said, we weren't very good in junior high.
Yeah, exactly what Marc said right there. So if you would have asked me at that age, I probably would have said basketball because we had success with like the 97 team, and we were watching it as little kids, but gradually as we started playing as sophomores and stuff like that, we're like, gosh, we can be pretty good. And I just think that snowballs then for future kids. They watched us be good at football, which then we all had brothers. I know you did, and I had a brother that was 3 years younger, and then that was part of the 8P. It was kind of cool that families, Ben had a brother, that we were all part of the 8P of just family members going down to their brothers.
How did you improve so much from going to be maybe a pretty mediocre junior high football team to climbing the mountaintop, being the best team in all of Ohio in football? Was it coaching? What was it?
I think it was a little bit of, coaching is, yes, for sure. Like I said, the off-season program, they help us. I don't know what it is. My son's in junior high now, and he goes and plays other schools, and I don't know I don't know if it's Patrick Henry Water, but all of our kids are tiny, it feels like. And which my kid, I already told him, I'm like, you might as well just get used to it. You're going to have to live up to it. But I think we all grew, and the weight program helped a ton. I know personally for me. But yeah, I just think it was a little bit of everything. We all grew up. We never gave up. Like I said, we practiced nonstop, and then, well, I'm sure we'll get into it after our junior year and just moving on. We just wanted to keep building.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think what's really cool looking back on it is how the classes kind of overlap, and we had a strength in our class, right? We had some skill talent, probably some of the best skill talent that we've had in a very long time in our 2005 class. But we had, we maybe didn't have the amount of linemen that it really takes, to get over the hump. And we had classes above us and below us that we were able to kind of sprinkle in, good talent there. And then, like I said, guys come in the program, late bloomers. Justin Leder he just got beat up as a junior on scout team by the Spurgeons and everybody in the Sonnenbergs, and grew like 3 inches and put on another good 30 pounds. And senior year, he was a beast. He was an all-league lineman for us and really anchored the O-line and D-line. So just a lot of different things. The program, keeping kids in it and keeping kids building strength and going up against scout team and getting better, all those things all were a benefit.
Yeah, I think they did a good job of letting us know, your ultimate goal is to compete in high school. Yeah, you want to compete at the junior high and, midget levels, but your ultimate goal is to work towards being a great high school team. And obviously in junior high, you're separated year by year, but when you get together, that's your ultimate goal. So keeping that in focus, not just, at a young age, we want to have, get our rings just because we won a championship or something, The ultimate goal is to be good in high school. I think they did a good job of reinforcing that with us.
We asked Ben and Zach, and they had great answers, but talk briefly about your memories of Patrick Henry football growing up. Zach talked a lot about the 96, 97 guys, if you remember some of those guys. Obviously, Heber, Heiser, Gherkin, and some of those guys from 97. Talk about your early memories of Patriot football.
Yeah, I was, water boy since I was probably 3 or 4 years old. Don't remember all the years. I don't quite remember the year you were playing, but I do remember 96 and 97. Obviously, those stick out as key memories in my childhood. Heber, Heiser, Gherkin, all those guys. Just being out there around them. We look forward to going to the game every Friday and seeing what they could do. And yeah, that's my first memory, I'd say.
Yep, exactly. So we were probably 9, 10 years old those couple years when we really started taking the program to the next level. I had an older brother, senior in 96 was his senior year. and then another brother that was 99. And so, all those years we were at every game. Program was really having a lot of success. It was a lot of fun watching Brian Heber throw it around to Tony Heiser and Chris Kirkin. Like, those were some studs. And so the excitement, like we've talked about, from the community and the kids, just, it's a different age, right? Kids now want to be Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase. We didn't really have that much exposure to the NFL. Social media is a brand new thing now, right? So it was, I want to be Tony Heiser today. When we play in the backyard, it wasn't, I want to be Tony Heiser, and Z wanted to be Brian Heber, right? So that kind of stuff really kind of set the table for where we tried to get to.
I don't want to have the same answer, but that's about the time I remember really following it. It must have been the age we were at the time, but I remember being in Findlay, the power going out. Everybody remembers that game. But yeah, I mean, like Marc said, I would say I didn't follow football as much until I started hanging out with Marc and Zack and them. And Marc had older brothers playing, so I always wanted to go. I just remember being like, I want to go watch Eric and Kyle play, and I'm sure I tagged along with Marc a lot of the times then too to go to the games.
I asked Zack and Ben about your reaction after the loss to St. Henry, and Zack talked about it just devastating him. What was that locker room like for you guys, knowing that maybe you didn't play on a field that was maybe a level playing field that night with the speed and different aspects that you guys had?
Oh, it was definitely frustrating. You can probably ask my parents. We were all grumpy for a good couple months until we got into basketball season and that got going, but we just stuck to it. I mean, we had a group of guys that we all hated losing. We knew we were good, and I'm sure the other guys said it. I just remember the next year, it was just, we really didn't care anything about, we just wanted to win state. Like, that's, yeah, you're playing week 6, and the coaches did a good job of never letting us look forward, which I would say the coaching staff did a great job of that, because it would be easy to do that, because everything on our mind was unfinished business. Our goal was to win state, but the coaching staff did a great job of not letting us overlook the games before that. But yeah, that's mostly what I remember about that.
Yeah, I remember being really cold and wet and really mad after that game. That was a tough way to go down with really talented team that we thought we were right on the edge, man, of getting to Canton and making school history, all that good stuff. So that one was a hard one to swallow, but I don't know if 05 happens without 04. It's weird to say. I don't know, because it was just, there was a sign unfinished business, and every weight session was, you were going as hard as you could until you couldn't, because we weren't going to have that feeling again, right? So I don't know if 05 happens without 04. If we win 04, do we have the same kind of season in 05? It's probably something we'll never know, right? But the amount of work we put in that following offseason to never feel that same feeling again, I'll never forget that, and it's something that carried with me for a long time. The amount of work when you really want something that it takes to get to that next level.
Yeah, the locker room that night, there's a lot of tears that night, a lot of mad, just angry. I don't think we were thinking about just the field conditions at that point. Obviously, after it set in and for a while, you're like, geez, wish we could have played on a better field, but that wasn't the initial thought. But I think it kept us hungry all off season. I'm sure we were right back out in the gym throwing with Z that winter, all winter, because Z would set it up and we'd go out in the gym and we were running routes and probably from junior high on. But.
Yep.
Who was the most competitive guy on that team in your minds? I know you all were, but was there a guy that was uber competitive?
Probably Zack.
Yeah, I'll echo Z. Yeah, he just had a tenacity about him, and probably came across as cocky to some, looking back on it. But that was just how he played the game and how he carried himself, and we needed that, right? I'm pretty mild-mannered. These guys are mild-mannered. We were all pretty talented, but Z kind of brought out that swagger for us. It helped us play with that edge that we needed, and I'd say he's probably the most competitive guy, especially when I'd whoop his butt in NCAA football all the time and back in the day on PlayStation.
Yeah, I'd probably say Zach too, but like Marc said, we had a really good mix. Like Zach would be with the linemen pumping them up before games, and me and Marc would just be sitting in our lockers just getting ready for the game. And we had a lot of quiet guys, and we had a lot of guys like Zach and Billy that got everybody pumped up, and we just had a really good mix. Everybody kind of knew their role, I guess.
So I want to, because these are good questions. On a lighter side, who were a couple of the funny guys? Because it can't be all business all the time. There were some times during two-a-day breaks where you guys had a good laugh, right? Who was a guy or two that kept things light and was just super funny on that 05 team?
We had a lot of them.
You got to be careful. Don't share anything specific.
Yeah. I mean, Josh Strube was one of those. Drew Kuzel, Tom Bush. We always got good laughs out of Tom Bush. But yeah, I mean, we were such good friends that we always just joked around with each other. I mean, it was all fun and games.
Yeah, we had a ton of fun. It was a great dynamic of you knew how to get your work in and getting it done the right way. And I heard Ben talking about earlier how practice was really probably pretty fun to watch. I'd actually just like to watch some practice film sometimes from back in the day. I don't think we did it, but it'd be cool to watch because we took it very serious, right? And it started with Z. He was always the ringleader. He was always the guy who wouldn't let anybody slack. We didn't have very many bad days. You know, I can think of one Coach I blow up in two-a-days. That's it. And that's all it took was one. And we were having a bad day, and Coach I woke us up a little bit. My arms are probably still sore from the amount of push-ups we had to do that day.
Any details you can share for the public, Marc?
You know, Coach I just, tried to pump some people up. Might have jumped on some backs, knocked some people over. Everybody was better for it, though. It did the job. He knew how to push buttons pretty well. Coach I was a great motivator, and we got the message loud and clear that day.
Brad, who were a couple of the funny guys on that team? Give me somebody different than Brian said.
I was going to say, I feel like Tom Bush always had something. I know he mentioned him, but
what made him funny? You guys both mentioned him. What made him so funny?
What comes to mind is like state championship game. That morning, he has real long hair at that point. I don't know how far it was, but he'd always have to do this to his hair and clear his face off. I think he was showering that morning, and he did that real hard and did something to his neck.
Oh,
Who was rooming with him? Ben was rooming with him, and he heard him yelling in there. He goes, "What the heck happened?" And Tom threw his head so far that he hurt his neck. So that whole day, he couldn't turn his head. The whole state championship game, he was like this. But just like one of the stories we could share.
Yeah, that's classic Tom, yeah. Yep.
You didn't have many tough days, but Elmwood, that night was tough. What happened that night, and how did you get through it?
Oh, that's a good one. Survive and advance, right? And once you hit the big dance, that's all that matters. So we got through it, but did definitely test us a little bit. I don't remember a whole lot about that game outside of scoring with like a minute 50 to take the lead for the first time, which was pretty wild for us that season. And the deep breath that the entire probably community took once the clock hit zeros and we were able to put that one to bed. But I think it was great. I think a lot of great teams always have one close call. Definitely refocused us. We did not have to have we didn't have a bad day at practice that next week because we realized how lucky we were to get through, a tough Elmwood team that really pushed us. So I don't remember a whole lot of specifics, but that's just me. I don't remember a lot of stuff.
I'll be honest, I don't really remember much about that game either, probably because I don't want to. I do remember Marc coming up with I think he might have said, "We got to jump that hitch" at the end. And Ben picked it off then, and that was a sigh of relief. It was actually, in hindsight, it's easy to look at now. I feel like we started looking, that made us rethink of like, all right, we got to go back and start focusing, and we can't have any hiccups like this again, which luckily we did not. Got anything on that?
Yeah, I mean, I remember halftime of that game. Obviously, nerves are high and tension, and I remember just scrapping a lot of the game plan at that point. But I mean, kudos to the team and the coaches for making an adjustment, and we ran with it. And I remember the week after, I'm pretty sure we didn't say Canton for another 4 weeks, because obviously we had talked about it all year on Unfinished Business, but after that game, I think Coach I said, all right, we ain't mentioned Canton again until week 15. So
No more
get it out of your system, and we're done with
no more C word.
until we get there, you can't talk about it. So
That's true.
kind of changed our mindset.
You guys had Wayne Trace the next week. Was that at Defiance, if I remember correctly? And there was some trash talk, if I remember correctly, a little bit from them.
JJ Huddle or what were we talking?
I don't remember, but I just
Huddle?
remember there was some.
Whatever happened to JJ Huddle, by the way? We need to bring that back.
Defunct.
Yeah,
stuff.
defunct.
Now it's
Yappy.
Yappy. But that's watered down.
But the
too.
Raiders thought that they had a chance against you guys that night, if I remember correctly.
I don't remember trash. I mean, I know they had a good team. I don't remember trash talk, but
Okay.
was there something said in the paper maybe?
I thought there was. If I remember
Someone
correctly.
write
Marc
about it in the
may,
paper?
I don't remember any of that. I just know we could have
or maybe
played
it was
whoever,
pregame
and
or.
that week of practice after the Elmwood game, we weren't losing to anybody in the state and division wide. It was a refocused. We took care of our business in a pretty good fashion that day. I do remember that against Wayne Trace.
So after that Elmwood game, including Wayne Trace, they were 11-0. Winford was 12-0. South Range was 13-0. Cincinnati Hills in the final was 14-0. Everybody you played after Elmwood was unbeaten. Any memories or thoughts about that? Did you even know at the time? Did you care?
Oh, we definitely remembered them all being undefeated, because I think, gosh, that even ever happened of just playing undefeated. And every team that we played, they all had I remember Bucyrus had a good running back. North Lima South Range, I think they had 2,000-yard running backs. And then Cincinnati Hills Christian Academy, I mean, they had athletes all over the field. We really didn't talk about the records at the time. I think the Elmwood game kind of made us not even think about it. We just had to do our job, basically.
Yeah, I would echo that. It wasn't really worried about the opponent as much as if we do what we know we can do and what we're capable of, we're a hard team to stop, right? We had a lot of weapons. You load the box, we'll hit you outside. You try to cover us outside, we'll just run it down your throat, right? There was really no way to stop our offense that year because of how multiple we were. So it was really a refocus back to the basics. Let's do what we know we can do. We could put up points on pretty much any offense or any defense. And so I don't remember those teams being undefeated and that being a thing, but I think we were just focused on what we needed to do.
Yeah, I mean, to mimic what they said, I don't remember the records, but pretty sure they all ran a different offense every week, so it was different preparation. Like Wayne Trace was spread, Winford was a lot of run, South Range ran a lot, and Cincinnati Hills was a spread again. So it was, each week you had a different game plan each week, so it's mostly what you're concerned with.
Marc, I'm curious your thoughts on CHCA coming out and single covering you, and Zack talked about that when he was on. I know you couldn't hear him, but do you remember them coming out and trying to guard you one-on-one and kind of your reaction that day?
Yeah, I definitely do. I wasn't sure right away, right? A lot of teams kind of can disguise things. Hey, man over top with the safety that rotates. We saw a lot of that. And honestly, I saw that for about 2 straight years, which was fine, right? I didn't care about anything but winning the game. Who scores the touchdowns, who got yards, who was in the paper. That really didn't matter to us. That was why we were such a good team. It didn't matter who got any kind of credit or glory, so to speak. So, but it was weird just seeing somebody just on their own out there, just because I had seen so many, double coverage looks throughout the years then. So that was fun. It was cool to kind of test yourself against somebody else, and we dialed up a few shots and hit a few, and really kind of got us going early in that game.
Ben, you can jump in here too because you're a defensive coordinator now. But I'm curious, was there a way, as you think back 20 years later, to slow down this offense? What would you do as a defensive coordinator to keep them in check in your mind? Is there a way?
shade someone over top, and hopefully then Kiefer can get at least even game with Brian. But the one thing you can't do with that team is you can't just ignore the run game. So we try to get some heat. I know what our Achilles heel is as far as pass pro. I can't say it out loud because I can't give away secrets. So I know how I would blitz us because I know what gives Coach I fits. So I dial up some blitzes in that way.
Z would have saw right through him.
Yeah, and I move coverage around, and I'm fortunate, again, like the team I have right now, I have two really good corners. I wouldn't dare just to give them on an island, but I'd try to use their athleticism and disguise some looks, but again, try to dial up some pressure. But it's probably the lesser two evils. I know you can't die by the run, so I'm definitely not giving up the box, so that way you die against the run game.
It's good stuff.
That's great stuff. 20 years later, what is so special about that season as you think about it to wrap this up? And Coach I, you can come up, and Ben, you can come up here too and give your thoughts on this. But what is such a special about that 2005 team as you guys continue to grow older?
Yeah, I think it was the culmination of a lot for a great program. I heard Coach talk earlier. You don't get many chances to climb the mountaintop as a program, and just super proud that we were blessed at the time and with enough athletes and enough great coaches and to all come together and for the common goal to get to that mountaintop. That's something nobody can ever take away from us, from this program. And hopefully we can get there again. But it's just tremendous memories. Really, really awesome time of my life for sure. Nothing but the best memories, from 2005 for sure.
Yeah, I mean, going on something that Marc hasn't said, I just feel like whenever you get back together, it's like the topic of conversation. I mean, we were the class that won state at Patrick Henry for football. So that's always the conversation starter. I would say another thing is just you look back at it now and you wish you were back in that time because what we had. I mean, it was so great with your teammates, your friends, and that's something you got to tell high school kids now. Like, yes, you go in life, there's things in life that do get better, but nothing beats Friday night lights with your friends, and just cherish this right now.
Yeah, I feel like it was, culmination, build up through the years. Coach I had been there for, 15 years at that point. I just feel like it was for the whole program. We were so close with some of the guys a year older, 2 years older, and they were just as good as us, but it worked out for us. But you feel like you're, carrying that badge for everyone.
I mean, and I guess the reason I am in the position I am and the reason I went into the profession I did is because, I talk to our kids quite a bit now about how I want them to have the same experience as I did, or at least similar type of experiences. And so I wouldn't trade my childhood or my high school experiences for anything. And the number one reason is because of the relationships we built in the locker room and the games that we played on Friday nights. And so we take so much pride in that and try to replicate that and continue the program on. And that's why we have so much pride in it. It means so much that I dedicated my life to coming back and trying to carry that on. So, it means the world.
I'm going to use the word camaraderie. I love what Marc said. You're talking to a guy who played professional baseball. What memories has that got to be? But we had our 45th class reunion last year for me. What do we talk about? Football, right? We talk about football when we went to state in 1977, our junior year. Football is the greatest team sport, Tory, that there is. And when I say that, it's because you need to work with so many people to make everything work. And it just brings everybody together. Personally, my favorite sport playing was baseball. I tried that at college. But my greatest memories, my greatest friendships are from football. Second to none. It's that camaraderie. It's incredible the friendships you develop, whether it be in coaching or with players. And camaraderie is a word in football that just is special. That's all there is to it.
Outstanding. Thank you guys so much for taking the time tonight. We appreciate it. Tory, you have anything you want to add?
I would just wrap up by saying something funny Bill always said. You know, he talked about the camaraderie, football. One thing I always remember about Coach I remember almost everything he ever said, but he would always say, and this is as they're trying to, you know, Patrick Henry's a basketball school and that, and Coach I's fighting for football, you know, and he'd say, we don't discriminate. It doesn't matter how tall you are, if you're short, if you're slow, if you're heavy, it doesn't matter. We don't discriminate. And he would say that with such conviction and such passion. And football's a great melting pot, isn't it? All shapes and sizes and abilities. Everybody has value. There's something for everyone in that sport. And I always remembered that and always got a kick out of it. And to this day, it's true. Football doesn't discriminate. Very good. Yeah. What a group, man. What a group.
You can see why they climbed the mountaintop, right?
It didn't surprise me then, and it surprises me less now, seeing what kind of men they became.
Yeah. Thank you guys for the memories for Northwest Ohio football fans. Thank you so much, and congratulations on that season 20 years ago. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in this week. Have a great week.